Well, hey, y'all. Welcome to another DCO Live. Steve, Russell, Dean, good to see you guys in here tonight. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Um, First of all, one of the things that I want to start out with is I need to address the echo from last week's live with Captain Bob. There was not an echo when we were doing it live that night on Thursday. And a matter of fact, Captain Bob used that DCO Live for his show on Saturday morning, and there was no echo in the audio. But when I went back into YouTube to rewatch the DCO Live, there was a bad echo. I don't know what happened during the processing and the uploading to YouTube, but something changed and I don't know what it is. So, guys, I apologize for the audio quality. I'm still trying to work out a few things on my end. I'm trying to get a little bit better with the whole cameras and the audio and the microphone. So, guys, if you hear anything during these lives that sound weird, echoes, things like that, please let me know so that I can try to correct it on my end. But with that out of the way, I want to thank Captain Bob for jumping on last week, and really breaking the news about the new outdoor radio channel that's going to be on iHeartRadio. Now, I am in no way sponsored or affiliated with ORN. It's just, Captain Bob's a buddy of mine, and I'm really excited about his new venture being on that. So, guys, go to iHeartRadio on September 30th. Give it a listen. I'm sure it's going to be great. I mean, the lineup that I've heard that's going to be on there is going to be absolutely fantastic. So, guys, go check them out. I really am excited about that new radio channel. Secondly, just a real quick thing. If you guys want to support the channel, I do have some DCO hats left. I think I only have like 10 left. So, guys, if you want to pick one up, just check the description, shoot me a message, and we'll get hooked up and I'll send you out a hat. Okay? Dean, it looks like you already got some stuff out there for us. Dean said, for flounder, wait 30 seconds after I feel the thump. That works, but the hook is often so deep that the fish will not survive. I see that you seem to set the hook immediately. How do you do that? Okay, so that is always one of the things about flounder is, a lot of guys say, hey, when you feel the thump, of that fish hitting your, go drink a beer or count to 10 and then set the hook. Well, I usually don't. I still have way too much bass fisherman in me. When I feel that thump and that rod tip will thump down on me, I'll give it maybe a second or two and that's it. And then I'm setting the hook. I don't wait that long because these fish, or especially if they're eating aggressively, they will take that lure down and they will gut hook themselves and get hooked pretty deep. Now, even with that quick hook set, I have hooked fish that are deep where I just cut the line and release them and let them go. I have heard some biologists say that you are much better instead of trying to dig out that hook to go ahead and just cut the line and release the fish. The survivability is a lot better for those fish. If it's a keeper fish, a 16-inch flounder, then you can go ahead and keep that fish if you like. But if they're short, cut the line, do your best to get the hook out. If they die, it's just part of fishing. Sometimes the survivability is low, especially if you get them hooked too deep. I feel bad about it. There's been a couple of videos where I've had some guys, comment, hey, listen, that fish is going to die on you. Yeah, I get it. I hate it, but I can't keep it because it's too short. If it's a 13 or 14 inch fish, I can't keep it. and unfortunately that fish will die. But just don't wait that long to set the hook. um, Steve actually just said, I set the hook fast and rarely miss one. Yeah, just jump on there, and as soon as you feel that thump or bump on that rod, go ahead and just set your hook. I know that there's a lot of times where I will set the hook and the fish will come off maybe at the boat. That's flounder fishing. Flounder are notorious for, once they get up to that water, man, they just start going crazy. They will just start thrashing around and they'll throw that hook, and they are just notorious for that. My thing is, I try to keep them under the water the best I can. I don't let them get to the surface and shake that hook out. But you guys have seen it enough on my videos. It happens. It's flounder fishing. It's fishing, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. So, yeah, Dean, hopefully that answers your question. And Dean also threw in another one. He said, also, I seem to be at Oyster Landing most of the time. Do you ever put in at the municipal ramp? No, I don't put in at the actual public boat landing. It just gets way too busy. So I try to stay out of their way, especially on the weekends. If it's a weekday, I have put in there before because there's just not a lot of people fishing during the week. So on the weekends, I am down at the Oyster Recycling Center, the Oyster Landing, and that's where I will put in 100% of the time. I let the boats have the boat landing, and I try to stay out of their way. So, yeah. So guys, keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming. I want to get into this fall trend, September, October, November into December. This is the best time of fishing right now, but especially this next month, October, it is absolutely going to be awesome. So I want to touch on some redfish right now. And so what these redfish are basically on the back end of their spawning cycle. Usually that August and September, the redfish are spawning. So they're going to be by the inlets and the passes, and they're going to be laying their eggs and doing that kind of thing. Now, what I have heard is redfish will lay their eggs on an incoming tide so that those eggs are basically flushed into these marshes, get up into the grass to be protected. That's what I've heard. I know that there's a couple of biologists that listen to this, and they've reached out to me a couple of different times. So if any of you guys are on here, especially Charlie, Charlie is a grad student at ECU, and he is getting his master's in fisheries biology. And so, if you can correct me or send me a little bit of that information, that would be great. But basically right now, we're on kind of the back end of that spawning cycle. So if you guys want to target some redfish right now, the closer to the passes and the inlets you can get, the better you're going to be. And I think the better quality size redfish are going to be hanging out there. So especially like in Merle's Inlet, Pawleys, Cherry Grove area, the closer you can get to those jetties and those passes, that's where those bigger redfish are going to be. I'm not saying necessarily you got to be in the jetty system, in that cone, but the closer you're going to be to that area, I think there's going to be, some nicer redfish there. But also saying that, these redfish are also going to be pushed back into these creeks where these shrimp are going to be at, and the mullet. So look at both areas. If, like at the Oyster Recycling Center, it's a long run to get out to the jetties, especially if you're in a kayak. So, check the back creeks first, and then if the tide is right, that'll take you out that way, go out that way. But right now, the fishing is going to be really good in really both directions. So if you want quality fish, in my opinion, go to the jetty areas or the passes. And slot fish and the occasional bigger fish are going to be back in these creeks where a lot of these shrimp are going to be pushed back. So that's where I'm going to be looking for them, especially this weekend. So if I'm going to be targeting some redfish, which I'm going to be targeting trout right now. Um, Trout are going to be in that mid water column, and I like to be over oysters, any type of an oyster rake or an oyster bar, and up against grass lines. Though that is where I am going to be targeting my trout. So trout are mid-column feeders and they feed up. If you ever look at a trout, their eyes are on top of their head, so they're always looking up. They're not looking down. So mid-column lures, popping corks, things like that, top water. That's how you're going to target your trout, especially right now. And then your flounder, I am going to be targeting at creek mouths on the outgoing tides. And this weekend is actually going to set up very well for that, which we'll touch on here in a little bit. But I got another one. I don't know if you remember, I mentioned I went to Navarre instead of Merle's Inlet for Mustang Week. I got my limit on flounder down there. Thanks for the tips. Hey, that's fantastic. Absolutely awesome. Small craft angler, good to see you. We have messaged a couple different times on Instagram. And he says, what tactics and techniques do you recommend during the slack tide? Okay, so slack tide, if we're talking the bottom of the tide, one of the things that I use at the bottom of the tide is lighter weights. So 1/8, 1/16, or even a weightless EWG hook, because there's not a lot of water and I want to be a little bit more stealthy and finesse style for low tide slack. They say that fish aren't feeding during slack tide. That may be true, but I have caught flounder during slack tide and I have caught redfish during slack tide. Trout, I'm not sure, because I don't think I can remember targeting trout during slack tide, because usually when it's the low tide, I'm hunting redfish and flounder during those times. So trout, I don't know. They may need that water movement and that current to feed. But now the top of the tide, yeah, pretty much the same thing, because at the top of the tide, I'm going to be up on the flats. So if you can think about Merle's Inlet, Weston Flats, if you guys know where that is, even at high tide, Weston Flats isn't much more than about 4 feet deep. So still, I want to work those grass areas with lighter weights. I don't want to get down on that bottom with a 1/4 ounce, because an 1/8 of an ounce will get down 3 to 4 feet just as quickly as a 1/4. So use that 1/8 or that 16th, keep it along the top, work the grass lines, and any anomalies that you see on these flats areas, especially if you see a little hole or a pocket, work those areas, get that lure on the bottom. And again, that 1/8 of an ounce will work just fine. I have also worked some deeper holes at some creek mouths at high tide slack time and have done well with flounder. Again, I think flounder just feeds so aggressively that honestly, I don't think they really care if there's current movement or not. So I have always done well at slack tide with flounder. And if I'm not seeing anything else move, I'll target flounder. And usually I can find them and catch them. So hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, so those are kind of the fall trends that I'm looking at. So let's kind of transition over and let's look at some of the lures that I'm going to be throwing, especially this weekend. So let's start at the top. So there's going to be 2 that I'm going to be working this weekend. One, I just found the Salt Strong one. This is the Moonwalker, but any type of a pencil top water, like a Heddon Spook Junior. I mean, it looks just like a Heddon Spook Junior. So this skitter walk or a wake bait. I'm going to have both of these tied on at the first thing in the morning and work the grass lines. And again, picking up trout and redfish. This is going to be absolutely, I'm going to have one tied on. So if you guys see me at the landing, you'll see one of my rods will have a top water on, and it'll be one of these two styles to start out with. So these are going to be my top water baits that I start out with. And then as I work through the day, I'm going to hit some mid-column stuff. So maybe start working for some trout. And a couple that I'm going to do, one is the mirror lure. Now this is a MR57. It's a little bit bigger, and I like this one in the fall instead of the 17 because the mullet are bigger in the fall. They've had all season to grow and get bigger. You guys will start seeing these schools of mullet. I mean, they'll be, you know, 5, 7, 10, 12 inches, and, you know, these fish will target it. So a nice twitch bait, mid-column, MR57. This is in their skin series. I really like this one. This is a tip that Captain Bob gave us last week, and it's throwing the chatterbait. You can see that this chatterbait I have beat off of the bottom where the paint is starting to come off already. And I put a little paddle tail trailer on it. But I'm going to throw this around like Captain Bob said. I'm going to keep it kind of in the middle or the top of the water column. And I'm going to see if I can't pick up some reds. So I'm going to have this tied on and throwing this around this weekend and see what we can do. But oh, Captain Bob just jumped on, so I was just giving you props. I'm going to be throwing around your tip from last week, the chatterbait, and you can see how I beat this one up. This one's got some miles on it. The white paint is all beat off of that head. But I'm going to be throwing this one around in the mid column, and then also a popping cork. So I just tied and rigged this one up. Oh gosh, I dropped the cork. So I just tied this one up this afternoon. So this is a 4 Horsemen popping cork. This is the one that I like, but they have all different kinds of popping corks. The egg style, this is the cup style. I like that one. And this is the Z-Man Prawn Star I'm going to have tied on underneath. But you can have a paddle tail underneath these popping corks. I'm going to be throwing it along the grass lines and working it and popping it in anything over an oyster bed. Now, I always get the question, how long of a leader do you usually have for the popping cork? It depends. So when I see an oyster bed that is 4 feet under the water surface, I want to have my leader just above those oysters so that this shrimp imitation or my paddle tail is just above the structure. So whether that's, you know, a 3-foot leader to keep it a foot above the oyster, but I want it kind of off the bottom. So I know some guys keep them 18 inches to 24 inches. That'll work just fine. You'll pick up a ton of trout. Again, those trout are mid-column feeders and they will feed up. So when you pop that cork, to make that noise, to make it sound like fleeting or spooked shrimp, they are going to look up and they're going to see that bait settling back down, and that's when they're going to hit it. So this rig right here, deadly for trout, deadly for redfish, so tie it on and give it a try. So those are my mid-column lures. And then on the bottom, working off of the bottom, there's going to be several that I'm going to be throwing. So one is going to be a jerk shad. This is a 5-inch jerk shad, and I've got it on a 1/4 ounce jig head. This is the eye strike jig head, the trout eye. And so popping this right off of the bottom is going to be killer. And then also along those same lines is a paddle tail. So these are going to be 2 big ones that I'm going to have tied on this weekend right off of the bottom. Then my 2 shrimp, of course, is going to be voodoo shrimp, which I still love the voodoo shrimp, still one of my favorites, and I'm still going to be tying on and throwing the prawn star. So those are going to be the ones that I'm going to be popping off of the bottom. So you can suspend your shrimp off of the cork or work it right off of the bottom. Okay, so guys, if you have any questions on that, you know, let me know. Steve said I hop my chatterbaits off the bottom aggressively. I've heard that. Matter of fact, last weekend, I mentioned that, and Captain Bob and I kind of debated that a little bit, and the tip that he told us was, you got to watch it around those rocks because you will lose them. I have lost them, but yes, hopping these things off of the bottom and getting that thing chatter and coming down and chattering and coming down. Yeah, it looks just like a spinner bait doing the exact same thing. So Steve, exactly, man, I love doing that and hopping it off of the bottom. Absolutely. Small craft angler, he said, use that Z-Man Prawn Star the last 3 days. Gotta say, I'm a believer. Caught trout, redfish, sea bass, and flounder. So it sounded like this is going to be a staple in your tackle box. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So I was actually out last Saturday. Went to the Wando River, and I threw the Prawn Star around a little bit. I didn't get anything on it. It was a tough day of fishing last weekend. I went down there with Heath. I met him, and it was a tough day. Actually went out with two other guys we met at the landing. One guy caught a redfish. I caught a 13-inch flounder. And I think that may have been everything that was caught in our little group. When I got back to the landing, I talked to um, a kayak guide who had some clients out, and he couldn't get anything to hit. He was actually skunked with his clients. He said he saw fish, but he couldn't get them to hit. So it was just one of those days. I don't know. I hope somebody had a good day last weekend, but I couldn't find the fish. I couldn't get them to hit, but that's fishing. So Berebi, I hope I said that right. He said, hello, quick question. Should I run snap swivels between fishing, when fishing for peacock bass? Or should I just run the lure straight to the line? I live in Puerto Rico, by the way, and use feathers and fling. Puerto Rico, man, that's awesome. Hey, welcome, man. So here's my thing about snap swivels and swivels. I would not use them. I would run my line straight to the lure, and here's why. The more knots you have, those are going to be areas that could possibly fail and break. So the only thing that can break would be the line right here tied onto your lure. But if I had another swivel 6 inches above that, now I've got a knot on both sides of that swivel that could fail, and the knot here. So that's 3 areas that it could fail. So even though I'm not familiar with peacock bass, I know they got them down in Florida. I've never fished for them, but no, the less knots you would have between your line and your lure, the better off you're going to be. So that would be my advice for that. He said, I use a braid for a main line and a 5-foot fluoro leader. Awesome. Awesome. That's pretty much what I do. I do pretty much. I would say my leader line is on average about 3 to 4 feet. I get a little bit lazy. I tie my leader lines a little bit long because I change out my lures quite a bit, and I don't want to change out my leader line, my mono or my fluoro that I've started to throw right now. So I just don't do it. So yeah, so that's what I got. So guys, hopefully those lures will give you a little bit of a place to start when you head out onto the water. But there is a new kind of segment that I want to start. We may not hit this every week, but I'm pretty much calling it boat ramp boat ramp brain farts. So let me give you a story here first. So last weekend I went to the Wando River and I met Heath down there. And so we were there. I got there right at about, gosh, what was it? Maybe 6:30. I'm getting everything unloaded, the kayak's out. I am almost ready to go. And I'm pulling things out of the front seat, and I close the passenger door, and as soon as the door closes, I saw my keys on the seat. I locked my keys in the truck, didn't have a spare. I don't have a spare key for my truck. And I looked at Heath and I said, just lock the keys in the truck, man. And he looked at me and he was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I was like, yep. I said, dude, you got a Slim Jim or a brick or what are what are we gonna do here? So I had to wait for a locksmith. We burned like an hour and a half. Heath was nice enough. Heath, I appreciate you, buddy. He stood there with me the whole time. We just gabbed and chatted with guys out on the boat ramp and till the locksmith came. But man, I tell you, just a brain fart. I laughed about it. I actually put out an Instagram reel when I was out on the water and just like, you know what, it happens. And then I asked you guys, what kind of brain farts have you guys had? Because I know you guys have had some too. And matter of fact, I just see somebody that said the drain plug in the boat, forgot the drain plug. Yeah, matter of fact, somebody commented forgetting the drain plug in the boat. Yeah, that's a common one, absolutely. No net was one, got out there with no net. And here was one that was actually pretty funny. And this gentleman, I'm not going to give out any names, but he said, got to the boat ramp, unloaded everything before I realized didn't have any rods. He forgot his rod reels. That's great. And then later on this week, I had another gentleman say he was so excited at the boat ramp, he put his boat in, took off, and left the boat at the ramp. I mean, he said, luckily it was a foggy day and the ramp wasn't busy, but he left the boat at the ramp. That's hilarious. See, I mean, it happens to everybody. It's just funny. So, guys, I mean, if you have any that you want to share, throw them in there. Matter of fact, Captain Bob said, I left the chum and the cut bait in the truck, realized it about 12 miles offshore. Yep. Yep, and I bet you that truck smelled great when you got back. It was probably about 110 degrees too, and that bait was probably just cooking inside your truck. But yeah, that's a good one too. That's a good one too. But guys, if you have any of those, brain farts that you have, I actually went to a tournament last year down at Garris Landing, if you guys know where that is, and it's right outside of Charleston. And it was an early morning start. I got down there. I didn't have the paddle to my kayak, and that's when I had the paddle kayak. So I had to go back home, it was an hour drive back and an hour drive back to the thing. So, forgot my paddle. I mean, gosh, man, of all things for a paddle kayak, and I forgot my paddle. Yep. That's me. Just your mind is in a different place when you're loading up, but pretty funny. Steve threw in there, I've left my drive and tackle bag a few times. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've done that. I was just starting to shove off one time and didn't have my pedal drive. And I was like, and I've got a pedal kayak. When my yeah, well, I think we're so excited to get out on the water, man. We're just, we just forget things. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys sharing that. That's awesome. So, yeah, if you guys want to share those and we want to make this kind of a weekly thing, share them. I'll put them up here. If you want me to give names, great. If not, I won't. But yeah, the old boat ramp brain farts. We'll keep those coming because I know they're going to happen again this weekend. So keep them coming. Yeah, up the creek without a paddle. Yep, that's exactly what I was, and I couldn't do anything about it. I had to go back and get it. So, so what I'm going to do is let's look at this weekend. So we have, as far as the weather goes right now, I know everybody is kind of battening down for the passing of this hurricane. So if I've got any of my Florida guys down there, guys, be safe. Thoughts and prayers are with you guys. You know, when you live on the coast, either in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, we experience those storms too. And hopefully, you guys all fare well. And, you know, just be safe down there. Don't take, you know, any chances with anything. We're going to get a little bit of rain tomorrow and some wind, but it's going to push out of here pretty quickly here in South Carolina. Matter of fact, Saturday and Sunday look really good. I'm going to share my screen here for everybody. And so this is the tide chart for Saturday and the tide chart for Sunday. So right now, the wind, as I pull up um, my weather app here, the wind on Saturday looks really good. So at 7 o'clock, we're looking at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles an hour at 1 o'clock. So Saturday looks really good, and Sunday even looks better. Sunday at 7 o'clock, we're talking 2, 3, 4 miles an hour. So the wind is going to be out. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to push out of here. And then as far as the tide goes, you can see first thing here in the morning at 6 o'clock, it's going to be high tide and then low tide at 1 o'clock. So it's going to be an outgoing tide, you know, half the day, and then coming back in the back half of the day. So my plan right now is to be out kind of right at first light, fish the entire outgoing tide. So I'm going to be set up at some creek mouths and let all of that bait and everything kind of flush out of those creeks and see if I can't pick up some nice flounder. So yeah, that's going to be my start of the day. I'm going to be throwing some top water up around some grass and even up into those grass areas because that's where those fish are first going to be. So, you know, look at those high tide areas, maybe your flats, like Weston Flats, like in Murrells Inlet. You know, look at your flat areas first and then work into your channels and your creek mouths getting towards low tide. And the back of those creeks where they still may hold a little bit of water, but that shrimp is still going to hold back in there in those shallow areas of those creeks. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing this weekend. And so, guys, again, be safe this weekend, especially tomorrow, Friday. I know I'm not working because of the weather. I think even our schools around here are having an e-learning day. But again, you guys that are in the path of this storm, you know, my Florida, Georgia guys and gals and families, please be safe. You know, don't take any chances because these storms, you know, they are dangerous. So, guys, I appreciate you guys jumping on here. This is really starting to get some traction, the DCO live stuff. I'm going to go ahead and just continue to do it weekly unless something comes up where I can't, you know, have one. Always check my Instagram and Facebook. I'll throw out some kind of a little short video and kind of let you know what's coming up. But we're going to keep doing this weekly all the way through. I think we've got a great community going here. I mean, to have somebody from Puerto Rico jump on here, I think that's fantastic. I had another subscriber that is in, oh gosh, where was he at? Down by Brazil somewhere. And I can't remember exactly where it is now. And I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart. So, but guys, I really appreciate you guys. And I will see you next week. If you guys have any questions that you think about early in the week, shoot me a message. And either on Instagram or Facebook. And if you guys want a hat, hit me up and we'll chat about it. Guys, appreciate you as always, and I will see you guys next week or out on the water. Guys, have a great day.